Hey people, welcome to the show. Today's show I'm gonna continue what I did last time. So nuclear physics, all about it, and equations, and to explain how that can help in creating the best plants, enriched plants, sort of like similar to nuclear physics, to return youth, good looks, and long life, long health to people and everything. And I told earlier in some videos that I know the quantum realm of the whole Earth and everything. But once one understands it through physics and the following equations, I'll show that's not really that hard. All atoms on Earth have a certain amount of energy in them. They are part enriched, part not, and so on. So that's not really hard to know. So through physics, when one understands it properly and everything. Nuclear physics, of course, it's secret in many nations and everything, but like I told, people can leave in the comments any technology they're working on, any problem in science they need to fix, they don't know how to solve and everything. And in my physics, that I have like thousands of ideas, thousands of technologies and everything, and I love to share them because I have even too many ideas and everything. So people can leave in the comments any problem they have in science, in technology. They want to make a millionaire, billionaire technology. Those are all possibilities. People can leave in the comments and I would answer that in a future show. So this is the equation I showed last time. I had some camera trouble. It didn't really show things very well. Had to move in up close to show everything in detail. So this is the equation I showed. That's the gene equals quantum entanglement that I showed in the last video. The atom that one uses when he eats food, that's what his body is made out of, and that decides how long he lives. And this is the equation I explained. This is just so people can see it. The equation itself, which is very beautiful and very interesting physics, that's the thermonuclear physics explanation right there. That's the shock wave, nuclear matter, nuclear mass, and how it all goes through. And thermonuclear physics is actually very important for many things. Let's say our skin right there. When it is too hot and the neutrons have too much hot energy in them, proportional to cold energy, the skin is then old and hanging. That's, let's say, the alpha right here, temperature, and omega temperature, which is thermonuclear physics. So when the neutrons in our skin are too hot, then the skin is old and hanging and everything. But when they are full of cold energy, which comes from graphene and everything, and comes from being young, then the skin is tight and good looking and everything. So that is actually what I was looking to explain and everything. I'll show people just the explanation right there quickly, which is the explanation of the equation. It's very long and everything, so but people can translate it, very nice physics and everything. That's density of neutrons equals temperature, and that decides the spreading of the fire of the shock wave. But that's not really that important in the whole physics of plants and everything. But this is a more thorough explanation of nuclear physics and thermonuclear physics. But this applies to all matter, also the cure, how to be young again, and basically all matter in a sense. So I'll go through this equation quickly. It's a very long explanation, but I'll go through just so people understand. I'll explain it in English so that it's all understandable. It starts with the nuclear atom. That's the secret part, how it's made, enriched, and so on, so it doesn't go into the secret parts. The nuclear atom equals quantum entanglement. That means how neutrons and protons stick together and how dense they are, and the more energy they have, the denser and denser they are. That's quantum entanglement, which equals temperature of the atom. Now, the denser the neutrons and protons are, the hotter and hotter the matter is, and that decides then radiation and so on. That's why radiation comes out of nuclear matter, because of its quantum entanglement and temperature. Very easy to understand. Now that happens through the number of particles, which equals density, what I just said, which is divided by the number of neutrons, times which one gets nuclear temperature, which is later on important, and proportional to acceleration, proportional to the nuclear temperature, one gets acceleration of nuclear energy divided by the space of temperature, which I'll explain here later. So times the atom, times quantum entanglement of those atoms, which is the number of atoms, one gets nuclear matter. So the more of those atoms they are, the bigger the bomb is. Then the whole bomb, that's this part right here, that's the matter itself, which is the atoms. Times acceleration, let's say on the equator, which is 1,675 kilometers per hour, that's on the equator, that's of all matter on the equator, the acceleration, and therefore the mass. That acceleration divided by 3,085 gives the exact number of incoming mass into matter that is decides its weight and everything. So that acceleration divided by the space is divided by the space of incoming mass times speed squared through space proportional to distance from the gravitational center, that's the center of Earth, which is actually microgravity, mg is microgravity. So equal to this whole part is nuclear mass. So that's the mass of the neutrons and the protons, all of them sticking together. And that divides into the weight, which is equal to one atom, each one individual to itself, which is divided by the number of particles. The more particles, then the more mass, which equals density. So those are the important part in mass of all matter, but even nuclear matter. It is divided by weight of the atoms, and the atom is divided into the number of particles, which equals density. Then that whole thing, when the bomb goes off, which is also the secret part, of course, which is secret in nuclear physics, times the joining of nuclear mass divided by weight, it is identical to quantum entanglement. So quantum entanglement, people know very little about it. In my physics, all matter is quantum entangled. This glass right here, the walls, every solid piece of matter that is atoms are sticking together is quantum entangled. And that is a huge new physics, beautiful in explosions and beautiful in many things. Through quantum entanglement goes mass, goes temperature, and energy joins. That's how an explosion happens. The joining of nuclear mass divided by the weight, the more the weight, the more of the mass happens. That is all identical to quantum entanglement. So quantum entanglement is also density, how dense the neutrons and the atoms to each other are, and that decides in a blast how much energy one can pack in a bomb, so to speak. So, and that joining of nuclear mass and weight through quantum entanglement, which is identical to quantum entanglement, which comes also from temperature in all matter. Well, not all matter, but most matter. Some matter is, let's say, chemically sticking together. That would be paper, honey, glue, and so on. But solid matter is quantum entangled matter in my physics. And that equals then the whole process of the bomb starting, which is the joining of mass, and even when the mass joins through the neutrons, even the temperature joins, and the temperature fries the matter into energy, and that's how the bomb starts going off. So then this is the part where the bomb starts to blow up. And then that equals this joining of mass and energy and temperature equals outgoing mass, which is equal to the shock wave times the acceleration. So the faster the bomb is moving, the more acceleration it has. Therefore, the mass and shock wave increase then. But in very small amounts. It would need to go like 1,000,000 kilometers fast per hour to really have some big impact on the mass. So it's a small difference, but it is a difference. It happens. So then the mass and temperature join, the temperature fries the matter, and that is equal to the outgoing mass, which is the shock wave. Outgoing mass in my physics is coming out of all matter, all atoms, all neutrons, all protons, all big matter. That's it carries radar, sunlight, darkness, wireless, many things. But all matter has incoming mass and outgoing mass, and they are equal. How much incoming mass there is and how fast it is decides the outgoing mass, and in a bomb the shock wave is on. That's why it's times acceleration. So that outgoing mass shock wave is divided by acceleration of energy, which is equal to nuclear temperature right there. One gets from the density and number of neutrons, and that equals mass of the accelerating energy as well. So times the acceleration of energy, which is equal to temperature, and energy can only spread to hot space. The moment the cold surrounding space makes the heat die out, the energy dies out as well, and the bomb then shuts off and stops. So times acceleration of energy through, that is 1,675 kilometers per hour on the equator, when the bomb has blown up already, it is about that on the equator. It is divided by the space of microgravity. And that's Earth's rotation, microgravity. That gives weight to all of us. And this nuclear mass, that gives mass to all of us. This acceleration on the equator, that we are in that same space of mass. And that gives mass not to us like in the big realm, but yes it does, but it gives mass to our atoms as well, which is our atoms in the quantum realm. And that too is important in part in the cure of aging and plants and everything. That gives mass to plants as well. But to their atoms, that acceleration through microgravity gives mass to all atoms on planet Earth. Gravitational pull gives us weight, pushes us down onto the scale, us as big individuals, but to our atoms, this is what gives mass right here. So through the space of microgravity, it equals incoming mass, and that is divided by the speed that one moves through space proportional to distance from the gravitational center, because this speed is decided how far we are from the center of Earth. If we were on the moon, then we would be very far away from the gravitational center, and we would have a lot more weight in Earth's microgravity. Yes, on the moon there is no gravitational pull. There is gravitational pull, but not really that strong. But the moon does move faster around Earth through the space of mass, not the space of gravity. So, but that will be explained in later videos. The outgoing mass and incoming mass of the whole galaxy, how to measure it. That is very important in space travel, how to go far into space, because the incoming mass and outgoing mass, they are all over the galaxy. The outgoing mass is also dark energy, is a form of just outgoing mass outside the center of a galaxy, which is a big black hole. Its outgoing mass, in my physics, that's what dark energy is. Hits, moves galaxies and so on. So through that acceleration and of energy and everything, proportional to distance from the gravitational center, one gets the speed of light. So the energy just moves, and then as it moves through the field of mass, incoming mass, then out the atoms and the neutrons and the protons, the speed of light comes out as light. So mass comes into them and comes out as speed of light, and that's the end part of the bomb right there. The surrounding cold space then turns the temperature off, and so does the energy, and that is the end. So now I'll just mention the other equations that I thought to point out in the video. This is very interesting physics. This is something very interesting as well that I thought to point out. This is something people are even familiar with. Well, the bomb I just explained, nuclear physics. Einstein sort of told people energy equals mass times the speed of light. And then nuclear physicists, the Manhattan Project and so on, they say that sort of led them to the discovery of the atom bomb. And that basically means how much energy they pack into a bomb, that's how much mass it has. So mass is the outgoing shock wave, energy is the heat and fire. But the big actually part that is not mentioned then and everything is the temperature. And there are three types of energies, even in bombs, many bombs. So there is light energy, which is this c² one. There is dark energy, which gives youth and to live long and everything. And then there is invisible matter and invisible energy, which would be like that's the ozone layer on top of Earth. But even that matter, which is the ozone layer, is made out of fire and hot energy. So this one. So the big part that Einstein's equation is missing is the temperature actually. Energy equals mass, but it has to equal temperature, and one gets times the speed of light. Because if the neutrons in matter are not made of hot energy, which is photons entangled and hydrogen and some things, that's why in nuclear bombs hydrogen is added, because it is just E equals mc². Hydrogen is basically a lot just hot matter. So it is used like for a fuel on the space shuttle that is liquid hydrogen and so on. So energy equals mass, which equals temperature, because without the temperature, one cannot get the speed of light. And this is important in space travel, how to go to space, how to make better fuels and so on. I have even written text about solid hydrogen fuel, which is thermo hydrogen, like from a nuclear bomb, but it's just hydrogen, and it is a very good, like a propulsion system to go to space. So energy equals temperature actually, because without temperature, if the neutrons and protons are not made of photons, then one cannot get the speed of light, which would be like a further, more nice and detailed explanation of E equals mc². One very beautiful equation of mine is temperature equals mass times energy. It's just in an earlier book that I have wrote. And that's about all matter in the universe and how it can be in part made. Energy equals mass, temperature equals mass times energy. And that tells you if you have the right temperature and the right mass, you can get any energy you want from matter. That even tells you if you have the right temperature and the right mass in matter, you can make any type of matter you want. So here is a nice explanation as well. Energy equals mass times the speed of light through temperature. Because without temperature, which is hot, of course, the sun is proof of that, one cannot even get the speed of light. So I'll just show these explanations here. And that is that part. So this explains, let's say, smoke. This is smoke, which equals mass equals temperature through cold times the speed of darkness squared. So this, I thought to point out, this is the energy we need to be young. This is what our atoms are missing to be young longer. When a child is born, his skin is tight, very tight and very white. You all know when we have a tan from sun, our skin turns dark. Some people have dark spots. Old people have dark spots on their skin. Well, that's simply because they do not have this energy in those parts of the skin. They have the other, E equals mc². So Einstein's that hot energy, E equals mc², that's what makes people grow old, be old looking and everything. But this cold energy times the speed of darkness, darkness comes out of it as shadows. In my physics, That is what we need to be young. That's what our skin is missing. That's why graphene, which is 100% cold and dark matter, that's what gives us to be young, and that's what I'm using. And I have already made creams that turn the skin young and white, and they have worked, and there's evidence and everything. So this is what we need to be young, longer, good looking, and really be young, inside the body and outside. But this is about explosions, so this is what's left over. Smoke equals mass, which is still matter, just cold matter. When the fire has stopped, the bomb turns into smoke. So it's 2 equals mass, which equals temperature through cold, and then times 1 gets the speed of darkness squared. And the speed of darkness in my calculations is, nobody has detected darkness because it is too small and too fast. In my physics, it is the smallest particle in the universe. And an educated guess of the speed of darkness is about 540 kilometers per second is the speed of darkness squared right there. So, but because it is so small and so fast, not even a detector of particles can yet detect it. In the future it is possible, but it has not yet been detected at all. So this is the whole book, and this is one of the books. There's many more, 5 of them, and they will all be explained in the future videos. Antimatter, the best particle accelerators, the best magnets, even neutronium magnets, which are similar to stars, which are magnets just of neutrons and electrons. And all of them, those things and many things will be explained in future videos. This is one equation I wanted to show, which is very nice and easy to understand. Time equals gravity times space. Many people will think Einstein said that space is curved space-time, you know. Gravitational pull, Einstein called that curved space-time. People believe that on the satellites the clocks run different because of curved space-time. But that's not really correct. The only reason why in satellites clocks move differently is because incoming mass into them comes in a different speed because it is far away from the gravitational center of the Earth, and then that affects the clock to run differently, basically. That even happens if a clock is on an airplane, one is down. That happens to steam as well. It moves differently and starts to boil at a different temperature depending on the height. How high is it or how down is it? In space, steam doesn't really... in space it is different and everything. So that's what's really going on, 2 o'clock on a satellite. Mass squeezes it differently, and that affects the ticking of all clocks, of electric clocks, of atomic clocks, all clocks, because they all have mass coming into them. So time, in my equations, but time I see as a software. If gravity was hardware, let's say, of the computer of the universe, well then time is software, information inside gravity, but it does not physically really exist as reality, which is physical. Time, space. So the more space there is, the more time there is actually the explanation. And the Earth goes around the sun in a year. Pluto goes around the sun in like about 120 years. So there's a lot more time then on Pluto than there is on Earth, one would say. But that is only because there is a lot more space through which Pluto is going than Earth. So that explains this equation in short, which is nice also, but that will all be explained in future shows. Here I thought to cover nuclear physics and the planets and everything. This is one nice equation as well. Time divided by 24 hours equals gravity, which is divided by the gravitational center proportional to the sphere of gravity. So one day lasts 24 hours because of the size of the Earth and how far we are from the gravitational center that is a sphere. But the moon goes around the Earth a lot longer than 24 hours. Everybody knows that. It's a lot more days in days, but it is the same sphere of gravity, microgravity. So that equation happens times distance, proportional distance from the gravitational center through movement, which equals there people see what it says and everything, through distance proportional to gravity center that moves clocks, all clocks on Earth, and people who wear them and everything. So the distance of a clock from the gravitational center decides how the clock ticks. So many people say, you know, that's proof of space-time, that clocks tick differently in the satellites, but there's no such thing, I would say in my physics, as space-time. Gravity is a force in space, and gravitational pull is a force in space, but space itself is actually, I would say, nothing, untouchable, unseeable, unchangeable, not understandable. Nothing can alter it, change it, or anything that's in space. That's what makes space indestructible, and so on. So I have covered now this part. So wanted to say welcome everybody to Victoria Station. That's my apartment here, the place where I live and everything, where I work, my computer and everything. And this is a place I see it really as where everything is possible. Any technology, any good idea somebody has, it is possible if there is an intelligence just smart enough to carry it out. And that's what I'm here for. If people have problems, can't fix this, can't fix that, that's one of the things I can really help out with. Do a little research and answer that in future shows. So now So this is the shock wave, like I explained. In the equations. That's the shock wave moving right there. And people can see that. That's outgoing mass moving right there. That's the temperature, heat and fire. So where the shock wave is moving, so is the temperature with it, but the energy is way over there and going up. Because there is a force coming out of planet Earth that moves quantum things still up. Everybody knows hot air goes up, cold air stays down. Well, it's like that for all matter. It's like that for smoke, for when you are heating your apartment, hot air goes up because it is lighter, and cold air stays down because it is heavier, so to speak, in a way. This is now shock wave, and that shock wave is basically like a wind, like a strong wind. It's outgoing mass, they're all invisible all over the galaxy. This same force you're seeing, a shock wave, well, even dark energy is just a billion, trillion stronger and bigger force, but the same thing, just in a very big version. That's dark energy moving galaxies apart and everything. That's like bumpers to galaxies and everything. Here it is moving water, one can see. These are old tests. Here one can see it says atom central, atoms. So they call it the atom bomb, enriched atoms of a nuclear bomb. But all matter is atoms and can be enriched is something very intelligent to point out. So can our skin, so can our bodies, and that would return youth and good looks and everything to us. Just not this energy, which is hot. What we need to be young again and everything is cold energy, which I call dark energy in my physics. This is where one can see what I mentioned. That's the fire in the explosion. And that's atoms, neutrons, protons, and radiation, all broken apart and moving. And that's where the shock wave made the little thing, and it is hitting the bottom of everything. So the shock wave goes first, temperature follows, and then the energy follows. But the energy in part slams into the ground, and then a lot more of it is going up as well. Because even the explosion is a sphere. Just like sunlight comes out of a sun, and gravitational pull squeezes us, well, that's the same way how a bomb works. That's the same way how atoms work, the mass of neutrons, protons, antimatter, everything. It has a little tiny gravitational pull on it, and it has outgoing mass. That's why antimatter blows up. You have heard of the Higgs field, the Higgs boson, the Higgs field, and those are all, I would say, evidences in physics. Those are all just stupid things some people make up just to... There's a Higgs field, they say, that gives mass that particles and atoms move through. But to understand that properly and revolutionary, you can imagine it as gravitational pull. Every atom, individual to itself, has gravitational pull, squeezing it just like planet Earth has, suns, moons, stars. It's like that for all matter. Every subatomic particle, photons, darkness, any speck of radiation, anything, it has incoming mass and outgoing mass. And this here is an example of a very huge and biggest man-made outgoing mass, which would be the biggest nuclear bombs. But in the universe there are a lot bigger ones, supernovas and dark energy and everything, so it is still just very small. So there is the fire, one can see, and how it's moving. But on top, people can see that it's still moving, turning into smoke. Like right there. Now people can see right here, this is now dark, because that's already smoke. That means this is an old bomb that wasn't really that good, and part of it is made out of dark matter, which is what I tried to explain. The heat and the fire right there, that's E equals mc squared. That's hot matter. The dark right there is the cold matter, which is smoke, and the invisible matter is not even seen. That's the dust being moved by the bomb right there. But that is even evidence of what I just said. Even part of a nuclear blast is just in part E equals mc squared. The other parts are smoke, which equals mass of it times the speed of darkness. And that right there, dark spots in smoke, that's that, evidence of that. Right here, that is nicely seen as well, how the shock wave moves and everything. But the fire is still going up because half of the fire hits into the ground and then more of it is moving up than to the sides. And this is right here a nice... Now this is an old bomb, probably in the 50s or 60s. And you can see right there, that's the smoke. And the reason why there is smoke, because this is all the dark matter they put in the bomb. Back then they weren't really good at making nuclear bombs and everything. That right there is the heat and the temperature. But the bomb has already moved into cold space that's up there, because this is a very small nuclear bomb, and it's turning into smoke. Some of it, one would say it's the dust from down there, but most of it is smoke from the bomb. And that's just evidence of what I just told, that all matter almost, this is probably plutonium. Plutonium has dark matter in it. So then later people moved to uranium because they realized they had more heat in it and everything. So this is probably plutonium, which has a lot of dark matter in it. And then that's why people put hydrogen in the nuclear bombs, which is a thermonuclear bomb that I just explained earlier in the equation, and then there was a lot more of this heat there. I won't, of course, go into the details how that's made all to fit as one piece of matter that explodes, but that's like a simple explanation. So so that's all called dark matter right there, and in a bomb it's basically useless. It even cools the bomb down, and that's called neutrons. So when the bomb explodes, it has a lot less hot temperature, and so on. And that's why hydrogen, thermonuclear hydrogen bombs, hydrogen was added to the bombs to make it solid and everything, so on. Simply because hydrogen is just neutrons and protons, neutron and a proton, that are only that and not the smoke. So that's the only reason in thermonuclear physics hydrogen was added, because it's simple to turn it into stuff. It is even fuel for a rocket now and everything. But this is evidence of an old bomb that is half bomb, half dark stuff, you know. But this is the stuff we actually need in our skin to make us look young and everything. And this stuff is what makes us old. The E equals mc squared, hot things in everything. So just to explain that, in our skin, when the temperature in the quantum realm of the atoms is hot, then the skin is like that, loose and hanging, falling down. But when it is made out of this cold stuff, and one can see how simple that is to do once you understand it through nuclear physics, but we are going to do that through food. Once I make enriched, now the plants are growing as plants. But as soon as they turn into fruit, although I have already made some fruit these past few days, as soon as the plant turns into fruit, then I'm going to get the biggest equivalent of this dark energy into them. And that will go into the blood and enrich with that dark energy the human body. And that will follow in the future videos. So that's the things that makes us young, dark matter. It is a beautiful discovery in my physics. All matter that has a shadow and it's cold and it does not turn into fire, well, in my physics, that's dark matter. And that's hot matter. So when our skin loses all the cold matter, which is spent, our atoms spend it, a child's blood is like a plasma full of energy. And it enriches incoming atoms of food and turns them into the human body, young and good. But as he eats food, food is not really that good and healthy, and it spends that. And by the time a person gets to, let's say, 70 or 80 years old, that's what's left, the hot stuff in his atoms. And in the quantum realm, the temperature of the atoms is hot, and then that's an old person. His skin is hanging and everything. His hair is falling out because there is no cold energy. There's nothing to squeeze the hairs to make them dark and good. And then they just fall out because the skin is loose and hanging. So that comes from the hot stuff. And the cold stuff, that's what makes us young, and that's what we need to enrich the human body with. That's like every child has his own special type of energy in his blood that gives him that. But every individual has that individual to himself in part and everything. It is a special gene every individual has, but it is the same exact energy, you know. Black people enrich their skin atoms differently, so they have a different color. We have white skin, so it is a different color because it is a different density of the carbon atoms of the skin. But it is the same energy that all people do that with, which comes from food, basically. And that's why we need to enrich food with as much dark matter. That's what I'm doing with the graphene, in order for it to give us long life for 1,000 years, to look young, to be healthy and everything. So, but that's even evidence of what I just told. That's dark matter, that's hot matter. So, and the invisible matter, if it was there, it's invisible, so it cannot be seen. And as the bomb goes up, the fire turns into photons, goes away, and what one is left with, because this is an old nuclear bomb, is just smoke, and that's that. Now this is an artillery gun. It seems they launch it from an artillery gun. So this is old, from the 50s and 60s. That's the ideas people had. They were experimenting with new ideas how to launch nukes. But these were little nukes and everything. One also nice thing to point out in nuclear physics, if people are interested, who are interested in that, there are certain types of atoms that can be added to nuclear bombs to make them not have radiation anymore. The radiation that comes out of a bomb, when it's stationary and when it explodes, it's only because the internal temperature of the atoms. So if something is added to change that temperature, everybody knows nuclear matter is hot, some even glow and everything. So if that is changed, then so is the radiation, and future bombs could even be made that do not even have radiation. That is simply done just by changing the internal quantum realm temperature of nuclear matter. So this is now like a forest. This is one in Washington, in the United States, an old forest, nice forest. So just have to explain that now, nuclear physics implants in that. And now I'll just point out, let's say in Canada, there are trees, everybody knows, that grow. They grow even in the winter, even when it's the coldest, minus 40, minus 50. And why does that happen, a tree like that? Because in Canada, in these trees, there is a lot of hydrogen that entangles to each other, similar to nuclear physics. That's what wood is. Wood is just entangled hydrogen with carbon and some other stuff. I did that with graphene. So that's thermonuclear bombs right here. This is just a very tiny, tiny small version. But when it is entangled to uranium, then it's some huge, huge, big explosion. But in wood, it's nice and calm, nothing special. But even this can be sort of made like a forest, that this could be a piece of a rocket even, through nuclear physics, correct physics and understanding. And then that tree could even be part of a like a rocket. It would blow up and be very nice. But then the important thing is, what would they be attached to? Because that is probably carbon from the ground and weeds and flowers, and hydrogen from the water, and that's the wood right there. In a hydrogen bomb, that's the same thing, basically, just not with carbon, but with uranium. So easy way to explain nuclear physics so it's understandable. And because this is beauty of physics, understanding all atoms as the same thing basically. And applying nuclear physics to plants could be the best thing that ever happened to the human race. You know, bombs, people make bombs, but okay, in the past there were wars and bad things going on, but the world is sort of moving toward a place where it's nice, calm, peaceful, there's communication, internet, people are friends now, know each other, so probably war doesn't look like something in the future. The future, I would say, is looking very promising and very good and peaceful, democratic, and in big part because of science and technologies, because it makes life great for all people. And that's really what this is sort of about, explaining and everything. So in Canada, because a tree lives in minus 40 degrees, and the green parts as well live in minus 40 degrees, through thermonuclear physics, that would be simply understood. That is because in the neutrons of the whole tree in Canada, there is a lot of hydrogen and hot matter in them. And that's why those trees live even in minus 40 degrees. Let's say it's a palm tree in the desert. Well, most likely only palm trees live in the desert because the neutrons of a palm tree are made, or a cactus, are made out of cold matter. Now, cactuses are made out of rock. Cactuses' atoms are actually mostly minerals and rock. The root of a cactus picks up minerals and parts of the rock and turns that into its tree and greens. And a rock can live in the desert just fine, of course. So that's why a cactus works in, let's say, the Nevada desert, Texas, and so on. That's why a palm tree in Egypt works just fine and functions, even if it's not watered and so on. Because the neutrons of a palm tree are some very, very cold matter. So even around, if it's 50 degrees in Egypt, in the palm tree, in the atoms of it, it is cold and it is functioning very, very nicely. So when people understand that through thermonuclear physics, we can make any plant anywhere then. Let's say we take hydrogen from the liquid hydrogen from the space shuttle that it uses. Well, then we can make a tomato plant work in Canada just fine, and all kinds of farming and everything, even in the midst of winter when it's minus 50 and so on. Because in the neutrons there is temperature that is decided by the energy that is in the neutrons. So especially when we enrich those neutrons of carbon atoms and of water, we can then make plants anywhere, simply and easily understood. I told I'll do a special video on deserts and a special video on cold places. But through thermonuclear physics, then one understands that it is even very simple. And there is evidence of that. Because if this is a tree in Canada working and living just fine, then out of those same atoms, even enriched and better ones, with cold or with heat enriched, we can do that any way we want. Well, then any tomato, any plant that gives food can grow in Canada, in Egypt, anywhere on Earth, basically. Because in my physics, I have come to understand if this is, let's say, Canada, it's minus 50, well, I can make a plant that I choose what temperature is in the quantum realm of the plant. I can make it 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees. The special temperature that is perfect for it, I can make the atoms have that type of energy in them, that it has that perfect temperature and that it grows 10 meters high, gives tomatoes, fruits, everything. I mentioned patches over the fruit. The fruit is mostly cold matter of all plants. Mostly. So if it is in a cold place, one can just put hydrogen, a patch of hydrogen over it that is like something that sucks hydrogen in, but allows the fruit to grow, and it will protect the inside of a fruit, and it will grow nicely and everything. So even that, in a desert, that can be done with nitrogen. There is a patch over the fruit of nitrogen, and inside it is cold and growing and everything. So people can see there, that's even evidence that through nuclear physics, thermonuclear physics, we can grow plants anywhere. Enriched plants that give life for hundreds of years and so on. And that is the beauty through my physics and through nuclear physics that one observes all of nature and biology. And just like that is our skin and our carbon atoms. If they are too hot, we are old. If the neutrons of our skins have too much hot energy in them, then we are old and like that. But if they have a cold energy in them, that I'm making with the plants and with the creams, graphene is very beautiful for that because it is the only piece of matter that is 100% cold matter and so on. And once I return the cold energy to my skin, this one, I did the creams a lot more than this one, and one can see it is tighter a lot more than this hand. It has there more of the pores and everything. And it is working, there is evidence and everything. then we just put cold energy into our skin and we are young again. It is that simple. So just the human body needs to be enriched with the cold energy I just mentioned. And that cold energy is all over the place, all over Earth. It is darkness. Anything that has a shadow, that says it has cold energy in it, so it's all over the place. It's not that hard to do. We just enrich our body with cold energy and we are young again, live for 1,000 years. It is really in nuclear physics simple. Of course people will say that's not possible and don't know, but once people see evidence and the equations, I will show tons of evidence of that in future videos, people will see it is really that easy, not that hard. So this is now a forest that is in the video. All the greens are around and everything. And there is all weeds all over the earth right there. And people don't understand the weeds are not there because they're bad. The weeds are enriched atoms that are going to give fruit and give to the trees. Enriched atoms and not just bad earth. Most farmers, they see weeds, they get them and throw them away. They hate weed. But once people understand weed is there actually to help us. There is a beautiful saying, beautiful even in physics, there is no such thing as a coincidence. Everything has a beautiful, big, huge reason for it. And in nuclear physics and in my physics, every piece of atom is a beautiful physics and it has something great to offer. Just humanity has not yet reached that level to understand that in a better quantum realm physics way. So the weeds are right there to fall down and then they become dry, then the rain falls, picks up those atoms and they go into the tree and into the fruit. And that gives then more enriched fruit. Because without the weeds, the water would just pick up the earth, which is the least enriched atom. And then all the plants, all the fruit, and that effects would be not so good. Then that affects the animals. They would not be so young and healthy and so on. Then we eat the animals and it affects the whole earth and all the food on it. And this physics that I'm explaining is really true evidence. It's not some story. I did research 10 years studying the quantum realm technologies and everything. And what I love the most is actually making technologies and writing about that. And what I'm explaining about food is actually my physics put into food. I didn't have, like I have ideas about particle accelerators going to space and everything, and have been writing about that for a long time. But I don't have money, I don't have NASA, like sitting there, you know, for me or something. But food, I realized was something that's not that expensive that I can do. And I could make it for myself and so on, for family and friends. And then I went into that because it is not that expensive. And really, I have shown evidence so far. I have enriched even some fruits these days. I will show that in future videos. Some green onions and so on. And they are growing nicely, centimeter a day with enriched atoms. That is going very, very well. So this is like a forest. And like I explained in past videos, dinosaurs were once on Earth. Everybody knows that. But the dinosaurs died, well, in part probably people killed many of them because they were dangerous. You know, there are stories about heroes killing dragons, slaying dragons and so on. So that evidence shows that the dragons were actually dinosaurs and they didn't live millions of years ago. That's some evidence that says that, but they lived 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. In Peru there are rocks with our dinosaur carvings on them and so on. Mammoths, there are in caves shown pictures of them and so on. So dinosaurs from some point of view just lived 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, just there were no written accounts of that and so on. So let's say this is a forest and a dinosaur is coming over. All the food we have today is not enriched. A dinosaur cannot live on atoms that are not enriched. It is a huge, huge animal that needs enriched atoms in order to exist. And in my physics, and a lot of evidence says that that's why the dinosaurs died. There was no comet or extinction, and if comet hit Earth, then no life would be then ever. If it exterminated the dinosaurs, it would have exterminated the people too, from some point of view. So evidence, real evidence, sort of points to the fact that the dinosaurs died because there was no more enriched atoms food. That was 5,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago, when the population of people and animals was very small and the plants were thriving and everything. There's a story of that in the Bible, and in the Bible it is written that God told Noah, eat everything that moves. So many people see that as a commandment, and many people see the Bible as a religious point of view. But the Bible has top secret, beautiful physics in it, actually. If you observe it from like a very, very more understanding way. So in the Bible it says God created all plants and animals out of the ground. So evidence says that we are carbon, the ground is carbon, the animals are carbon, and so on. But there are other parts of the human body and everything. And so were the dinosaurs carbon, but those carbon atoms were like 100 times more enriched probably than ours. That's like the difference, past and present. And God told Noah, from my point of view, to eat animals because animals were made out of enriched atoms, and they are today as well. People believe that vegetables are good for them and good for kids. Vegetables are the worst food in my physics for kids or for anybody. The most rich to live long, I mean in that sense, to live long, the best atoms are top predators, alligators, sharks, bears. That's the best atoms, healthiest on planet Earth. We have farms of chickens that eat some weeds and stuff, but an alligator egg compared to a chicken egg is like 7 times healthier and richer and everything. And alligators, Australian alligators, breed fast. We could have farms of them instead of chickens, of course, which would be for health reasons a lot. Pythons also, and python eggs that are in Africa are hugely, I did research on that and writing, hugely rich and full of that energy, cold energy that one needs to be young longer and everything. But even with plants, through my physics, we can make those enriched atoms even more than animals. And then animals will eat them and they will be more enriched, and then we eat the animals. So from my point of view of the Bible, God told Noah to eat the animals because God wanted the human race. The Bible explains all of us on earth as descendants of Noah. And God wanted, from my point of view, told Noah that because of scientific reasons. Just in those days, and for, of course, good reasons for the human race, that God was looking out for the human race. And God told Noah and his descendants to eat only what moves. And that's animals, insects, frogs, all living creatures, not plants. Because plants were designed to be food for the animals, they enrich that food into meat, and then we eat the meats. Was sort of heaven's plan for the human race to continue. You know, back then the human race didn't have physics, didn't have medicine, didn't have many things. And how did they survive with all the diseases in a forest? And then one can understand. Because the atoms of Noah and his children alone in the wilderness, they were enriched. a lot more than ours. So they were resistant to disease a lot more than us. They were resistant to cold and so on and so on. So they were more enriched people, sort of, and a lot stronger and so on. And for health reasons, stronger and so on. That's from the Bible's point of view. Now, many people see the Bible as a religion, but the Bible is also an account of history. I mean, I'm a Christian. I believe in heaven and in God and everything. And in my shows, they will also, if people are interested, there will be a religious show. But I see religion from like my point of view. I don't like people to tell me some institutions, what to think, what to believe. I have like my version of Christianity, and I see it as truth. Not as some doctrine or some idea, but I observe evidence. What's true, I see that as true. Seeing is believing. And other people, and I can do videos on that if people are interested, but I see my religion as the true religion that does not have one word incorrect in it. So, but I see it from my point of view. But I am a Christian, of course, and believe in the Bible. So, God told Noah as well to eat the animals, but not the blood in them. The Bible says that, everybody can see that. So why was Noah not supposed to drink the blood of animals? The Bible says because the soul of the animals was in the blood of the animals. See, in physics, that means that in the blood of the animals is just adrenaline. If people eat and drink the blood of the animals all the time, they'll be wild. They'll be wild, they won't like physics, they won't be calm. They would sort of be like similar to animals. They would not be animals in their mind, but they would feel a lot of adrenaline and more in sports categories. So the Bible says God told Noah not to drink blood of animals for scientific reasons, because heaven knows what's in the blood of the animals, what the animals are, what the plants are, and everything, because heaven, God created all the nature and animals, as the Bible says. But people then didn't even know that atoms existed, or chemistry, or what could be in blood and so on. Number two reason that God told people not to eat plants, because in plants are all the drugs. Imagine a person is there 6,000 years ago, he's wandering around, he finds weed, cocaine or something, he thinks it's a nice plant, eats it, or whatever. There's thousands of medicines that are made from plants and flowers, so mushrooms and so on. There are some poisonous mushrooms, but that too could be some type of chemical that in the future will be some medicine or something. So then a person can understand why would God say to Noah not to eat plants at all. Number one is for those reasons, scientific reasons. Number two is because animals are enriched atoms and they are not drugs for sure. But as one can observe from history, what did people do for thousands of years? They would take animals, put them on an altar and slaughter them. From a religious point of view, and they will let the blood drip to some, back then they had those pagan religions, So the reason why God told, and those were all descendants of Noah, they were doing that because they were following in a little incorrect way Noah's instructions. Those books just didn't survive to today. So people would take animals, slaughter them and eat them. And they will let the blood drip on the altars. And they had no clue that that wasn't even told to them for some religious reason. That was told to them to keep their minds and bodies healthy, and so that the human race is created from healthy and good atoms and foods. And the mind of the human body is healthy and good. Plants also not enriched in some affect the brain, like drugs and everything. And in the past that was happening to people a lot, and that's how many of those pagan religions got to be. Let's say the Oracle of Delphi, she was standing next to a fume coming out of a volcano, and she was inhaling that all the time. She was high, and then telling people can observe that from historic accounts. So there's real evidence about all these things I'm saying. I have been studying things for many, many years. So what I say, I do not say without evidence to back it up. So then one can observe scientifically why God told Noah just to eat animals, and why Noah had to carry the animals to survive through the flood. Because without the animals, which is the food for the human race that we all eat today even, well, the human race cannot continue without animals. They would have fish, but then everybody would live only in coastal areas and so on. And there one can understand why the dinosaurs died out, because they were a different type of creature that requires enriched atoms food. Now we have dinosaur bones, but even the energy from them has been wasting for, let's say, thousands of years. But we can examine carbon atoms, we can examine calcium in the dinosaur bones and see the size of the atoms. And that would even be real evidence about what I'm saying. So basically in my physics, the dinosaurs died because all the food or enriched food ran out. The other animals took over because they were smaller and they could survive on the less enriched atoms and everything. But my physics and what I'm explaining, and I will explain a lot more videos and evidence about it, my physics is to return that 8,000 years ago forest in the desert, in Canada, in Europe, any place on earth, that we return enriched plants and everything all over the earth. And then the animals will eat that, they will become enriched, and we really save biology, and we save even the future human race through that, once that really works out and people understand that it's really working. I made like a plant of graphene. One could imagine that's evidence that we could make a human being out of graphene. A human being out of graphene, would that be Superman? A human being out of graphene, a bomb, let's say, falls there. Graphene just shrinks when it's hot temperature. It could not maybe even destroy him, an explosion. A human being out of graphene, that would be like Superman, Iron Man, sort of speak. But graphene is just a carbon atom, so skin can be made out of it. It would maybe even be a different color, but a human being really, through my physics, I have understood, could be made out of graphene. But enriched graphene that is ready for that, sort of speak. And that is something I have already made. Plant with graphene there. Instead of the ground and carbon atoms in the wood is graphene and hydrogen entangled. So beautiful thing in physics to do and everything. So in the leaves are graphene atoms and everything. And the plant is different colored and different behaves than the other plants. It can be even seen in its color and so on. Color represents density of neutrons, and that's the temperature of the leaves and the atoms in the quantum realm. So, but people can see, you know, farmers, I have been watching, like there is this one farmer, he has fish have waste, he feeds them pebbles, and then the waste goes into the lettuce, and then the clean water returns. And he's going like, oh, I was watching that, and he goes like, oh, see, that's genius system, it rotates, you know, and only clean water returns to the fish. And if you just ask them, so Where does the unclean water go? And that goes into the lettuce on his plate, you know. So something is missing there that people don't understand. See, the ground, like I explained in the earlier video, is 0. So not enriched atom, least enriched. Then the weed is number 1, just one time enriched. And then, let's say a cow eats the weed, and then it turns into waste. So when it's waste, it's wasting energy with the smell, and everything, subatomic particles are coming out, and the atoms are becoming less and less and less enriched. And then that's what we make most of the food, vegetables we eat all over planet Earth. Waste from cows, which is just a weed. But we have thousands of times more enriched atoms that we can do it with. But we use the least enriched, which is the lowest, worst one. And that person, farmer, does that with the fish. He could just take the pebbles and whiz them, turn them into a liquid and pour them in there. He doesn't even need the fish to. The only reason why waste is good for the plants is because it's chemically entangled atoms. So water picks up tons of them when it falls and carries them into the plants. But in a forest, animals eat meat. So their waste is meat, which is a lot better fertilizer and healthier for the forest from that point of view than the weeds that those animals eat. But we humans, that's maybe nature. Humans have been, they domesticated animals, those that they could, that do not eat other animals. But the meat and the healthiest atoms are those animals that eat, that are on the top of the food chain. So, that eat other meats. So that's why in the forest things are different and healthier and better, in part because animals eat animals. And then the waste that enriches the forest is made out of meat. It's not made out of just plants. So that's one thing to point out, simple, but waste ain't all that good anyway. Once people understand this through the physics I'm explaining, let's say honey is a lot even better than the waste of the animals. So these are big trees and everything. Germany was like that. Half of Europe was like this. Beautiful atoms, beautiful animals, beautiful all over. And people just chopped them down for money, like hundreds of years ago. The Romans did that. Many people fought. The Scots, the British, the Germans, the Norwegians. Norway has a lot of forests still because it wasn't really conquered so far. But many people, they chop down these beautiful old forests just for furniture and for money, you know. And that shows that the whole human race, so to speak, we can return that now easily through this physics. Even better plants that were, and trees and everything, better ones through nuclear physics than they were 5,000 years ago. But it shows how money and some things destroy even the lives of us. You know, some, let's say, kings 100 years ago, they chopped down all these enriched atoms and everything. And that's why we were eating, in part, these cow manures and making these, making plants out of them, because people didn't have more enriched food naturally there and everything. So there people can see a conflict between life and biology and between money and sort of that greedy point of view and everything. And everybody loves to make money. I love to make money, of course, through technologies, through work, through books. But, you know, if it's about life, human life, and a life about the whole human race, well, then it's not really about money. That would just be stupid to do. What? Somebody's gonna sell the lives of 7 billion people? What? And to whom would one sell that? What, to Ronald McDonald? What, he'll do a nice job? You know? So that's sort of to explain the psychology of things and everything. And nature is basically it was a lot better in the past, and it is intended to be that way, but people took things in their own hands, and they went sort of in a different direction. I explained earlier nuclear physics. See, when people make a bomb, that's very interesting, that can kill, let's say, 500,000 people, then all the best scientists sit down, they talk about it, and they made it like the Manhattan Project. But when people make food that human beings are made out of, then they go, ah man, just use what you got, you know. Find some waste lying around and make plants and food out of that. You know, and there one can observe the psychology like of the human race as a whole, you know, how some things are not really the way they're supposed to be in some parts. I mean, okay, people want to be powerful and be a superpower and everything, but that's why I'm explaining now that nuclear physics in plants, in life, in enriching food and human bodies is 1,000,000 times more important than making bombs. What, a bomb is just somebody makes a lot of fire and a lot of heat. But this is what gives life to the whole human race. So it is 1,000,000 times more important, and it is okay to reveal some parts of nuclear physics once it leads to that for everybody and everything. And tons of evidence in future shows will be about that, how to make that best food. I am now making the plants that I showed in earlier videos, but once the fruit comes, then all the energy of the plant is concentrated to go into the fruit. And then I will make the highest energy equivalent of the atoms of the fruit that I can. That will be in future shows. And then those atoms go into the human blood, they enrich the human body, and that returns youth and long life and everything. The Bible also says that Noah lived 900 years something, and so on. And simply put, through my physics, I see that as that was just because he was eating enriched atoms. It was not this or that or something. From a scientific point of view, Noah did what God told him. He was eating the animals. And the animals back then ate the highest enriched plants, and their atoms were highly enriched, and that's why Noah lived 900 years. So that's a historic account. Some people believe in the Bible, some don't. But the Bible is also a book about history that mentions things. We don't really have that many texts about, let's say, about 6,000 years ago, except what some old pagan versions were explaining, but a bit after that, so on. But one can see all these greens and everything, it all has a nuclear physics reason. That the leaves are dry, they will fall to the ground, and then the rain picks up those atoms. But the dry leaves lost their moisture. They are sort of hydrogen and hot, and then they go into the plant, they go into the wood and make very good wood, because hydrogen turns into more enriched hydrogen and so on. But the enrichment of the tree is probably cold. So it cools down the hydrogen so on and gives at a certain temperature that is supposed to be in that realm of the world, where it's colder, where it's hotter and everything. So through that understanding, through hydrogen, just that, and thermonuclear physics of hydrogen, we can, let's say, make Canada, the north of Europe, we can make a tomato plant that's a tree. I have now wood. My tomato plant, it has wood, real wood. It's no longer a green plant. It's like that, wood that's the color of wood. I have already made tomato plant wood. So, sort of like a vine of grapes, it's starting to go. So right now, if I wanted to in Canada, I could make out of hydrogen and special atoms, some maybe put metals, some some special type of atoms to water the plant with, I could probably make a tomato plant that's 10 meters tall in Canada when it's -40. Through thermonuclear physics, I would even see that as easy to do and everything. Or in a desert, I would use metals, I would use rock, I would use nitrogen, cold nitrogen, and make a tomato plant that grows in the desert, in Egypt, in the Sahara, and everything. The Sahara too, some evidence says, was once a tropical forest and everything. But simply because the plant life died and everything, it turned into a desert. But all those rocks, those tiny sand particles that are in the Sahara, they could be turned, some special cactus-like plants that give fruit, that can all be turned into a forest, just like this one, through chemistry and nuclear physics of plants and everything. But a special show I'll do for the desert and a special one for cold places to make food, enriched food and everything. So I plan in the future shows to make many explanations. I can also about religion, the correct religion without any mistakes in it. And I don't even see it as a religion, I see it as a faith. I see it as a science of belief. Religions, I don't see my beliefs like as a religion. I see it as a science of what to believe. And if you are searching for what to believe, believe what's correct. And if you don't know, well, I would say, well, then observe evidence, and that's that. But to believe some things, the stories and everything might just mislead people and so on. So in the future, there can be shows here even about religion, even about human relations. I also write books about psychology, but that is to make a computer program that has all of human psychology in it, that shields people of false information and everything. So there will be shows in the future about gravity, antimatter, a lot of technologies. Any technology people leave in the comments, I can attempt to explain the quantum realm of it to them, and that might point them to make it and everything in the future videos. And people can leave that in the comments below if they have a science problem, how to make a technology, a millionaire, billionaire technology, and I could in the next show explain that, the quantum realm of it and everything. I also have a beautiful patent how to make the Odin staff. That's something, electricity, I like the most in my writing and about it and everything. The Odin staff, let's say, here is the magnetic field of Earth, right here. And if one takes a certain type of water change and everything, he can absorb thunder to come out of this space right here. Because the magnetic field of Earth is here and it can give one, let's say, a thunder just to come out just like that. In a magnetic field anywhere that is possible of a planet and so on. I even have patents how to make magnetic fields of other planets and so on, and that will be in the future shows as well. And I have observed through some of my doing now that I told people in the last show to use honey and water, but the honey has to be mixed a lot and a little bit of it used in the water so that it doesn't clog up the systems of the roots. Because if the roots are like sticky, then water can't even get into them anymore. But the honey is very big atoms and makes them grow very well and so on. But that probably won't happen once it's mixed in the blender, or at least 3 minutes and so on. And I saw a video a few days ago about making plants. Tomatoes, I was watching it on YouTube and everything. And this one guy comes over and he's explaining to people in the video, he's like, oh, you'll find this gross, maybe, you know, but you can use human urine, you know, to make good tomatoes and everything. And that shows you how that old way of seeing things, as the person doesn't understand that through physics, that urine, human urine, is just atoms that are wasted of the food he eats. The quantum realm of the human body is a human being eats carbon and drinks water and everything. And the waste, let's say urine, is just water and atoms that the human body took the energy out of, and that's why it's always yellow or white. So the energy is taken out of the atoms, out of grapes, out of drinks, out of everything. They have a color, so that color is energy. But the P always comes out as yellow because all that energy is taken out. So there is even evidence that the human body is taking energy out of atoms, and only that goes out. Let's say people exhale carbon monoxide. So what is carbon monoxide? Carbon monoxide is just spent atoms of carbon, which is exactly what we need to stay young for thousands of years. So when a person exhales carbon monoxide, that's just spent atoms of carbon that the blood, the liver, sends out of the human body, and the blood, the lungs. And then the lungs just send it back into the air. So that's just spent atoms from the human body, from the blood. But that's in the quantum realm, so people don't know that because they would need evidence and everything. But that is evidence in part of that. So there is a lot of evidence of that enrichment, and the human body just needs the energy out of food and can really live for thousands of years and everything. And let's say farmers in the USA and farmers in the United Kingdom. I thought to mention that the seeds that they use and everything. People, let's say, in the USA and the UK are like very fat and eat junk food and unhealthy food. So this physics I'm explaining can solve all those problems like in overnight basically. The seeds they use is just seeds that have chemicals in them to be bigger. Because all farmers, they want to have a big harvest. But what I just explained in the videos and everything, to make enriched atoms means they get bigger and bigger and bigger with energy. And like nuclear bombs show, the bigger the energy in the atom, the bigger the mass is. E equals mc squared, E equals m. So that same applies to food, just it's cold energy, not hot. So the more people enrich atoms of food, the more they even get weight, and then they sell it even more. So this, what I'm explaining, is 1,000,000 times better than the chemical seeds and everything that they use, the farmers in Britain and the United States and everything, because they attempt to change the seed of corn and everything to chemically make it big. But what I'm explaining is how to make it big and 1,000 times bigger than even they did, through nature, naturally, which is totally healthy and the best thing ever for that. Because the bigger the energy in the atom, the bigger the fruit is. And but it even is healthier and better for people and for animals and everything. And then animals eat those fruits, then the meat is made out of them, so they will get then bigger and healthier and everything. And then the earth would be returning to that enriched atoms realm and world and biology that was in the age of the dinosaurs. And the nuclear physicist, you know, I explained something about nuclear physics. That's even very simple to me to point out and everything, how to make heat, that's neutrons, and the energy in them, how to make fire and so on, that's protons, plasma, like on top of the sun. The sun proves that. The sun gives us sunlight, just because of its temperature. So temperature equals mass times energy. And that's how we get sunlight. Sunlight hits our skin and it turns dark because photons go into the atoms, and that's that. So what I explained has a lot of evidence that shows, and nuclear physicists, of course, many, they keep that secret, but once it is understood that it can be applied to biology, then that is more important than some secret parts. But of course, the secret parts about nuclear enrichment are not even mentioned, which is because that is metal and is totally different in part than plants and everything. So thermonuclear physics can really lead to trees and forests. The Sahara Desert can all be a forest that gives beautiful, enriched food, animals, everything. And the sea is around it, so the salt can be taken out of it, and it can feed with water the Sahara Desert very easily, with pipes and everything and so on. So that's like some realization. Many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I was envisioning that, thinking about that, how it would be to turn Egypt into a fertile land, like this, a forest. And now I have really come to a physics where that is really understandable and really can be done and everything. And thermonuclear physics is a really huge explanation of that, and understanding what I have discovered, that matter consists of dark matter, which is cold, and of hot matter, which is hot. So in the desert, we will make the plants out of cold matter, and they would function fine. And in the cold places, we would make it out of cold neutrons, hot neutrons, and it would function there as well fine. So through thermonuclear physics, although a forest too is just thermonuclear physics, the weeds, the trees are in part hydrogen, carbon, but they are all enriched in totally different ways. Every tree, every plant has its own way of enrichment. Every separate species of tree has its own way of enriching an atom, a hydrogen atom or a carbon atom, a calcium and so on, and the fruit of it. Every weed is that. Every leaf is that. It has a different way of enriching an atom. So biology is like, we have, let's say on the table of elements, we have 120, but carbon just has thousands, hundreds of thousands, just on Earth, different types of enriched atoms of carbon. And the human body is in just the human skin and bone, human meat, muscle, organs, brain, and skin is carbon atoms, but just enriched to be the human body. So just like how plants enrich carbon atoms, so can the human body, just in a different way of meat and everything. Okay, so quickly gonna show what I do with the creams, how to make plans for the best creams that one can. That's what I'm doing these days currently. And this is the idea I got. This is a rich, nourishing Nivea cream that I use. I put about a centimeter or 2 of that in the blender. Then I use honey, about 1 centimeter, and I use 3 or 4 of these. Now that's cold matter, this is, well, half. This is cold matter, but it has oil in it that's good to make the skin tight and everything. But this is oil, so I don't use too much of it. But it's good for the wood and everything, and to enrich the plants and the future fruit even with that energy. It has vitamins, magnesium, protein, not so much, and it has zinc. But this combination is strictly to make a fruit that's gonna give the best cream to give youth to people and everything. And the final ingredient, of course, is graphene from a pencil.
This is what I use. This is what I can put in a blender that breaks down into atoms fast and easy. But graphene, that's 100% graphene, although this is just graphene with some clay in it, not so much. That is even better. So that's the 4 ingredients I'm using to make the best fruit, to turn it into a rich, nourishing cream that returns young looks fast and easy. So then a person just waters the plants with what I just showed in the blender. They're mixed, they have to be a thorough liquid, but here I used the Nivea a little bit too much, it seems, and it's sort of whitish. There it's not, but the water will pick it up and it will just evaporate. Nivea is atoms that are not chemically entangled. They are individual atoms. They're just full of energy and sort of like honey, like a thick liquid. So water will pick these up, or they'll go into the air and the plant will inhale them. So that's also good if that happens to you as well. But there is some honey even in the blend as well. But the honey has to be thoroughly mixed with water. So not a lot of it needs to be in it, so that it doesn't clog everything up and everything. And the graphene tree is right there. What I just mentioned, the leaves of it and everything, they have a different color, but these are sort of newish. I sort of now put in a little bit more enriched atoms and not the graphene ones, so the color is sort of yellowish and changed, but it is not growing that fast. And there's the fruit right there, that's the flowers that are supposed to turn into flowers, and one right there. But they are slower than other plants. The graphene one is sort of going to the sides and not going high up. The dinosaur tree, as people can see, is twice as big. It's twice bigger. So graphene has an effect on it and everything. These leaves are now sort of curly. When it's hot, graphene, it shrinks and everything. But it's going well. It's going well. So, but I thought to accelerate the growth even of this one and the fruit, I thought to add some more enriched atoms. This here now is sort of like honey. These leaves, they're more yellowish and so on. The old ones that there's a lot of graphene in it are sort of greener, but they are different. People can see the color of these, although these are different plants than of these, but the dinosaur tree has different color of leaves. They are the same type of plant as this one, and so on. So that will be the end for today's video. In the future there will be videos about food, of course, and everything I have mentioned earlier, but technologies, physics, dark energy, dark matter, space, gravity, technologies, thousands of things, and the quantum realm of it. Also, there can be shows about psychology, about religion, and so on and so on. And so, like, subscribe, leave comments below, and till next time, see ya.